Good grief. Here we are. Justin Beaver, everybody.
Zach Ciota.
Justin, man, good grief. I tell you what.
Tell me what.
I don't
Tell
even
me
know.
what.
We had no viewers, but we had a comment from Jessica. I don't even know how YouTube works. I don't know if Jessica has transcended time and space to come across the internet without viewing the show.
And somehow comment.
She somehow commented, "Hey, but without her, it'd just be me going, hello, guys."
That's right.
No, she's still there. Hey, there's a big 0 up here on the screen. I don't know how this stuff works. Oh, good grief, man.
Who cares?
Yeah, who cares? It doesn't matter. Obviously, it's not 0. There's at least 1. We got Jessica. Hey, Jessica signed up as guest of this show to talk Ephesians, the marriage part of Ephesians.
Yeah.
So I was like, you know what? Actually, I didn't say anything yet, so I'll get with you. But I think it's a fantastic idea.
Yeah.
For the future.
That's right.
So obviously not for tonight. That's already planned out. So, what is our plan, Justin?
I was going to say, you say it's already planned out, and I wanted to say, well, sorta.
What kind of plan is it going to be? I guess we'll find out together. Oh, I know we got both of them. We got Jessica and Craig. Here's the problem here. It says 1. I guess that's Craig now. So Jessica's still like an apparition or a ghost or something.
Yeah,
I don't know.
She's a ghost.
She's a ghost, man. I tell you what, I need the Holy Ghost.
She's got that incognito mode on her phone.
Oh yeah, that's what she's doing. She got that tab when you want people to know what you're doing.
That's right. She's using a VPN right now. That's what it is. Scrambling it.
I was wondering what you're doing in Malaysia. Yeah. I don't even understand how those work. I just know that they're good for people who dislike the government.
Yeah, I don't know.
Or if you're in China, because the state owns the internet or whatever to access, that you can use a VPN to get around that. I have no idea.
Ain't that what they did to the Cuban people? All the ones that were protesting or whatever. I heard something on the news like the government used some type of program where they shut down the internet to the entire country, so that people couldn't be posting on like Facebook and stuff.
Cuba has the internet? I don't know what Cuba's got. Cuba is such a mystery, you know. It's like sometimes the way they talk about it, it's like, is it just like total desolation? There's like no electricity half the time. 50% of the time, there's none. I gotta get focused, man. I'll tell you what.
Anyhow, so what's been going on with you? How was your week?
Oh man, it's been one heck of a week. You know, dealing with our ongoing family issues, of course. Which I hadn't really mentioned except for like very slightly. But I guess it is probably something that, because my wife put it on Facebook, so I think a lot of the people saw it there, I guess.
Yeah.
Let's say my sister passed like a week and a half ago. It's been over a week. You know, we just had the funeral this morning. It's been because she had her visitation. And then that was a couple days ago. Then the family had like a private, like her husband and my nephews had like their private thing, and it was just for them. I don't know if that's a COVID thing or what. I'm not sure. So we said, well, we're going to have our thing too, obviously. So I used to go to the Methodist church, which is like 3 minutes from here, and the pastor is in my older brother's wife's family. It's her father. So he came out there, and we just had our own service out there. So,
right,
which was really, really nice. And like my mom said, some of us needed closure. I feel like I got closure sitting in the hospital before it happened. And I'll tell you what, since we're on this show right here, I'll go ahead and tell you what I did. That day or that week, we're supposed to do the Ephesians thing. So I just read her the Ephesians stuff I was supposed to read while she was there. She was unconscious, but so I read all that stuff and had a talk, you know, basically just making sure that her heart was in the right place. And if it wasn't, that God works outside of space and time. He can do whatever he needs to do. So I figured that, you know, a faithful voice asking would do a lot of good. So that's what I did. That's how I spent my time.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you the truth, whenever she passed, I felt a feeling like it was worthwhile. I was comforted by it. So
yeah,
I feel like it was good. So just, life stuff like that. And did that, and I don't remember what else, to be honest. So
Yeah.
I'm going to flip it over to you. What'd you do, Beaver?
What did I do this week?
I don't remember.
No. Work was good. Work has been, I don't know what it is. Like, end of July and then now coming into August, like, it has been, I won't say dead, but I would say oddly slow for us. So it's like, it's July and August, and you're in Southeast Georgia. You're like, where's the call volume, man? Where's it at?
It is. It was 90, like 94, 95 today.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I can't believe that's crazy because it's humid too. It feels horrible outside.
Yeah. So,
it's a good time to be the sales guy and not the tech guy.
Yeah, I mean well, and that's the thing. It's like I think service is pretty busy, at least pretty steady. It's just like as far as leads and techs actually flipping equipment and stuff. Like it's been few and far between for a couple weeks, but this week it seemed like it got a little better. So thankful for that, considering I'm commission based. So
well, it couldn't last too long, not in this weather,
Yeah,
it couldn't last too long.
It's
bad luck.
It's got to come back around. It comes in spurts.
Yeah,
but that was good. Went to the zoo last night.
Yeah, I saw pictures. I was on Facebook. I saw pictures. I don't know if it was your wife posting them, but I saw pictures pop up. It looked like y'all were having fun. I didn't see you in a whole lot of pictures.
Probably a reason behind that.
Were you dodging or taking pictures? I don't know.
Probably dodging. But, I mean, the kids enjoyed it, so that's what's important. But obviously, that's not something, most men look forward to. It's like, oh, yeah, let's go to the zoo.
Mm-hmm.
But, and I reeled my pastor into going too, him and his family.
Misery loves company.
That's right. So he was miserable with me.
That's pretty good. Well, I don't know. What do y'all talk about? Your pastor. So you're would you say you're buddies with your pastor then? Because you eat together and all sorts of stuff, huh?
Yeah, I'd say we're pretty close.
Well, when you get together with your pastor, is it like 100% church talk? You talk about all sorts of stuff.
No, it's buddy. I mean, we talk about church and things going on in the church and the vision and, growing and new people coming and stuff like that. But that, I'd say 80% of the time it's just buddy talk. So.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. Well, I mean, you're not going to talk about church all the time. I mean,
yeah,
it's not possible. There's regular life stuff to talk about too. Wow. Yeah, and I went out to dinner last night because we were going to go out to dinner with my brother-in-law, his wife, and actually his mother-in-law came too. We were talking about Melissa's mother-in-law because they want to discuss, because she's going through the cancer and stuff like that. It's a lot of life stuff. You know what I'm saying? That sort of stuff you see on TV. That's what this week was. I couldn't just cut the grass this week or hang out in the shop. It was a bunch of life dealing with stuff. So
yeah.
But it happens. It's life, right? So that's what it's going to be.
Hey. And got a new gun in. That was about it.
What was that gun you got? What was that thing?
Glock 43X MOS.
Glock, huh?
Yeah.
You like those Glocks.
I do like Glock.
They seem very popular. Those Glocks do.
Yeah.
Which are fine. I know we had a comment. You could talk about the comment, actually. The comment about the guns.
I don't know who that guy was. Are you familiar with that guy? Have you seen his name before?
Nope. I don't think I know him.
I had somebody comment on, where was it even at? I don't even remember. Was it Facebook or was it YouTube?
It was YouTube, I'm pretty sure. Here, I'll bring it up. And this is not to highlight him in a way that's nitpicking or something like that. It's really just to discuss.
No.
Because it seemed like a nice enough comment. It wasn't mean or anything like that.
Yeah.
You had to give me a second to bring up the account here.
You're good.
Over 100 subscribers. That's right.
That's right.
In your face, other Bible studies. That doesn't sound like a good thing to do. In your face, Bible studies. No. All right.
Honestly,
this is
it seems
from
like we were talking about earlier. Seems like the podcast is starting to do better than YouTube does. So.
Mm-hmm. Podcast is doing pretty good. I don't know how many people listen to the podcast because we have just like the Egan family and George Flores here right now. So I don't know if all of them listen to the podcast as well or just do this. I don't know. But Jose wrote, this was 6 days ago on last week's show. The topics are great and you guys speak very well. Awesome. Well, that's not the end. Hold on. The only thing, the only thing though, in all honesty, is the guns in the background. I feel you guys would have more supporters if it wasn't the gun. So it wasn't YouTube. It was just supporters in general. Besides that, great video. So, I mean, that might be just like a personal thing of his. With, he's like one of the guys that I don't do guns or something like that. I don't know. But, I should say what I wrote back. Good grief. Here, let me pull it back up. Because I didn't respond. Yeah, you didn't get to see it. Right?
That's all right. Read it. I'm going to hear it for the first time with everybody else.
Here we go. And I said, except for Jose, hopefully he heard it. It says, thanks, Jose. We think that safe and responsible gun ownership can be a godly thing. Guns get a bad rap for the evil acts people commit, but they are also a source of pleasure for target, and I split trap shooting because I used to like doing trap shooting, and for, basically getting food too. Killing animals, getting food. There's all sorts of things you can do with guns that aren't crimes,
Yeah. Yeah, I think the media and it's just portrayed, being a gun owner is like a bad thing, and I don't know why. I totally disagree. So although I agree, or not agree, I appreciate his comment, and being honest, I disagree, but I respect his right to his opinion.
That was good. That's real
positive.
Good.
Honestly, he's got the right to believe whatever he wants to. I disagree with him. And I mean, if you're not listening to a Bible study and learning about the Bible due to somebody having a few guns on a pegboard behind him, you're probably watching for the wrong reasons anyway. So
I don't think it should be disqualified for that. Plus, I think it's a misunderstanding in how you think of the object. I think it's just where you're coming from, and I think that can be changed. It can be. So, I mean, obviously, we don't have a problem with it, but both of us grew up in the environment where they were used in a safe and responsible manner, so we know that that's what their intent is.
Yeah.
But I got you something here to get us into the subject at hand.
Okay.
We were talking about guns and weapons, and that got me thinking about old Saul, because I named this particular episode The Monster because in this study Bible, it says the green-eyed monster, which is jealousy. So I said it'd be good, the monster, because Saul kind of becomes like a monster during this First Samuel.
Yeah.
And it kind of, for me, it culminates, he's trying to kill David, and David didn't do anything wrong. He's just really jealous of David. But in chapter 22, this has already been going on for a little bit, but there's a priest that helped David out. I think it says the town was Nob. That's easy enough to say. Right. And the priest was Ahimelech was the priest.
Yeah.
And so he helps David out, but David had lied to the priest and said that Saul sent him on like a secret mission. He's like trying to get out of Dodge, right? He said, I'm on a secret mission from Saul, so it'll help him. So, of course, he was lying because he was trying to escape. So I think he was trying to get food and stuff. And then Saul comes along a chapter later here. And I'm going to read this part here. And for us, it's like page 399 near the bottom right. It says, King Saul, and it's verse 11. King Saul immediately sent for Ahimelech, I hope I'm saying that right, and all his family who served as priests at Nob. Easy to say. When they arrived, Saul shouted at him, listen to me, you son of Ahitub. What is it, my king? Ahimelech asked. Why have you and the son of Jesse conspired against me? Which is not true. He's just like making assumptions right there because of his jealousy. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Why did you give him food and a sword just to replace that with gun and makes it modern? Why did you give him food and a Glock? Why have you consulted God for him? Why have you encouraged him to kill me as he is trying to do this very day? All that. See, all that's like not true. He might have given him
Right.
something, but he's just like running with it. It's kind of
Yeah.
funny. It says, but sir, Ahimelech replied, is anyone among all of your servants as faithful as David, your son-in-law? Which is going to just tick him off because he's already mad. He's like jealous of this guy. Isn't David like the best? Why? He is the captain of your bodyguard and highly honored member of your household. This was certainly not the first time I had consulted God for him. May the king not accuse me and my family in this matter, for I know nothing at all of any plot against you. Saul's response, you will surely die. This is this guy saying like all this great stuff and nice stuff. He's like trying to explain himself. And Saul's like, you're going to die, Ahimelech, along with your entire family. The king shouted, and he ordered his bodyguards, kill these priests of the Lord. Just imagine saying those words. Kill these priests of the Lord, for they are allies and conspirators with David. They knew he was running away from me, but they didn't tell me. But Saul's men refused to kill the Lord's priests. And that's when you go, this guy's nuts. He's going nuts, Hey, but this guy he met, I don't know if it's Doeg or Dog or what. I called him Doeg the bounty hunter. That's how I said it in my mind. What does he say? He's an Edomite? Is that what it said? Something like that. So this guy was friendly to the king, and he had spotted David. For those of you listening, he had spotted David, and so David's like, he's going to tell on me, which he did, and told Saul about it. Said, and I'm going to just put it in there with my comedy, said, then the king said to Dog the bounty hunter, you do it. So Dog the bounty hunter turned on them and killed them that day, 85 priests in all, still wearing their priestly garments. Then he went to Nob, the town of the priests, and killed the priests' families, men and women, children and babies, and all the cattle, donkeys, sheep, and goats. To me, that is like the culmination of how insane this guy went in jealousy over David.
Yeah. Yeah, he definitely went off the deep end for sure.
That's crazy though. How far removed? And people like it can't happen now. But people, there's like murders on the news all the time of people that were in this state of mind.
It's crazy.
It is crazy. Only one of the guys got away and went to tell David. And what are you gonna think when it's away? He killed all the priests and their families. Said, "Oh, I'm gonna be behind this mountain over here forever." Right.
Yeah, it's a great story in the sense of it can reel you back in on us being focused on what other people have. To be, I mean, because Saul was blessed. He was, like they put in here, he was anointed by God. So, he come from a wealthy family. In other words, he had everything going for him. He had God on his side, the whole 9 yards, and he let jealousy just totally ruin him. And jealous of a younger dude in David. I mean, it's his son. It's his son-in-law.
Yeah, that's right.
Like, how do you get jealous of your son-in-law?
And what they say, Saul had all these good attributes. Like he was like what is it? He's like the tallest guy in Israel or something. They said tallest. He's good looking. He's well-to-do. He's got like everything going for him. And this scraggly little shrimpy guy comes along, kills one big Philistine, and all of a sudden he's like, "Oh, I don't know, man. I don't know."
Yep.
David's like the guy who could do everything well. Like he kills the bad guy, this big bad guy who's taunting your army. He plays the harp. So you can imagine it's like the guy that the women love too, probably. He's over there playing harps. He's a mighty warrior. He's got it all.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think for me, the story is just, this is what it makes me think about. We're quick to, at least I'm not going to speak for other people, but I know that I'm guilty of this. You look at what other people have, right? You want that big house. You want that great job or that promotion or that nice car, and you forget to slow down and appreciate what you already have and what you're already blessed with. And you take your focus off of that to focus on the getting so wrapped around making more money or whatever the case is,
Yeah, you're right. It's a lot of. It's always cool stuff. I mean, I was showing you some of the gadgets, like I was putting like the little Bible words on the screen with my phone and stuff. It's like cool gadgets like that. They're cool, but you can't like it can't be everything to you. Like those little things like that, and you get wrapped. I get wrapped up in stuff like that, so I got to kind of check myself for sure. It's an
Mm-hmm.
ongoing process. I feel like it's never going to end. You just got to keep doing it.
Yeah.
I did like that. Joe said, did they try sword control instead of gun control back in the day? Sword control. Yeah, it'd be funny. All the swords were semi-automatic, so every time you thrust, they'd go off. So they had no
Yeah.
more automatic swords. They couldn't have those.
Yeah.
And he also says, wasn't it the point where he didn't kill all of the? These words are very difficult for me. Am Amalekites, something like that. That God turned his back on Saul, and I was actually looking down there. It's like chapter 15. It said the Lord rejects Saul because he wouldn't finish. He said you need to kill all of these people because, like, that's what I was thinking about. That if the Lord's telling you to kill somebody, it's in judgment. He's judging them, and you're the instrument of the judgment. So if you don't do it, you're rejecting what He's told you to do. And I guess
Mm-hmm.
that's what Saul did. And I thought it was neat because Samuel went and killed one of the guys himself, like one of the
Yeah.
kings.
Yeah.
Samuel's like, all right, he wanted this guy dead. He goes, walks over there and kills the guy. And it was on the Bible series too. The guy was like in a cage, and Samuel just walks up and like cuts the guy and kills him. It's like, man, Samuel's, he's a prophet and all, but he's tough. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think it's hard for
So
people to get their minds around that one. I think.
yeah. So well, I hate to read that because it's kind of an overview.
Hey,
The
you
the
read
what went
overview.
the what went wrong section in our Bible.
Yeah, you can do that. I mean, I
All right,
think if it
chapter
helped
9.
us, it might help these guys like listening too. So,
Um, so let's see. I'm trying to think the best way to go about this.
you can tell me which page it was again first.
It is 379.
Oh, okay. I got it.
Um,
You need to tackle it head on.
let's see. I'm just going to start below the list of stuff there. Uh,
Okay.
so it basically says, with all these physical and spiritual advantages, what turned the name of Saul into a, how do you say that word?
Into a synonym.
Synonym for bad king. Um,
They
how
are
did he
funny in this
plunge?
book.
Yeah. How did he plunge from such a promising start to such a dreadful end? In many ways, Saul's fall from glory can be traced to a single problem that bedevils many men even today: fear of what others think. Two incidents in particular show how Saul allowed his fear of others, whether of his enemies or of his friends, to overpower his trust in God and to sabotage a promising reign. First, Saul let his fear of a dangerous enemy lead him to disobey a clear instruction from God, making an inappropriate sacrifice before a major battle, which is in chapter 13. The king then made matters worse by blaming his followers for his poor decision. His disobedience prompted the prophet Samuel to declare that God would soon raise someone else to Israel's throne, a man after God's own heart. Second, Saul allowed fear of his own people's disapproval to nudge him to disobey yet another clear instruction from God, of sparing the life of a man God had commanded him to kill. When Saul confronted him about this second, uh, what is that?
Egregious.
Egregious instance of rebellion,
Hey, it's
Saul.
not every man's completely. They could dial it down a little more.
That's right. Yeah, every man's Bible. That's a lie. So, instance of rebellion, Saul again blamed his men and admitted that he acted out of fear. That same fearful nature prompted him to set up a monument to himself and to beg Samuel, please at least honor me before the elders of my people and before Israel by coming back with me so that I may worship the Lord your God. Fear of others led directly to Saul's ruin and to this sad Old Testament judgment. Now the Spirit of the Lord had left Saul, which is in chapter 16. How much grief we could avoid by heeding the wise words of Scripture. Fearing people is a dangerous trap, but trusting the Lord means safety, which is in Proverbs. And the point of this, I guess, the point of this little passage right here is a healthy fear of God triumphs over all fears, all other fears.
Yeah, it's like trust. Your trust isn't complete, so he makes mistakes. He makes bad decisions. Even David made one, as I recall. Near the end, he fled because he thought Saul was going to come back and get him again. It was like the second time he had spared Saul, and he's like, he's going to come back again, so he fled instead of trusting God. And there was a little passage about that too. So I mean, I think it's a universal human thing that we lose nerve, but Saul did it in a really big way over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
And let's see, I'm trying to get. So Joe had like another comment. So yeah, that's what a lot of people say, that God is bad because he commanded killing babies, but you. Oh, stopped right there. Yeah, I think that was hard for me to get over. First, I couldn't understand it, but then I realized it was judgment, and he's the judge who knows all and makes the perfect decision. So,
yeah,
he can do that. He can do that. He's the only one. So,
mm-hmm.
but he sure ripped the kingdom away from Saul, which it's kind of tough to read, because part of me is like, I feel bad for Saul, but then he brought it on himself. It's like this thing that this guy's got it all. He's not only the king of Israel, he's the first king of Israel. He's the very first one that God himself anointed through Samuel. Samuel's this guy who's given his whole life to God, and like he's 100% for God, just like the book says. It's like everything he does is for God. So it's like this guy, Saul, is going to be great. And then like over and over again, he lets this stupid stuff get in the way. Just like little things, and it reminds me of like me every day. You know what I'm saying? Like you were saying beforehand, it's like every single day someone says something, oh, that makes me angry, that irritates me. It's just little things that you overreact to, or I don't know. You know what I'm talking about. It's everyday life. Stuff just ticks you off and stuff, and it doesn't need to be.
Yeah, see, Joe says, I heard a teaching how wicked I say Malachites. I'd say the A is silent, and I call it Malachites, but I could be wrong.
Sounds easier to say. I'm gonna go with
that. I heard a teaching how wicked the Malachites were, and it was God's judgment on them. I think that's a good point there. Like he was saying before, that a bunch of people say, God is bad because he commanded killing babies, blah blah blah. Here's the thing, okay? Like you said, he's the judge. He's the only one worthy of judging. So if you go to court, you're guilty, but you think that you either get, or we'll say this, okay? You are guilty of something, but you feel like you shouldn't be judged for it, and that you should be given a pass or whatever. You go to court for some type of crime, okay? And the judge says you're guilty. Now, you and your family might say, well, I disagree, I don't agree with his ruling, but at the end of the day, you were the guilty one. That's not how I want to put that. Okay. At the end of the day, is the judge wrong? No, because you are guilty. You might not like that you're guilty or that he's right, but it doesn't make it any less. He's still right.
That's right. I agree. Yeah. Saul is blatantly guilty. It's glaring. I don't know if it's just written that way or what, but Saul's faults kind of jump off the page, Especially, what I thought was interesting is reading through this whole thing, and you have Saul, who starts out like, oh, and then he ends up like, ugh. And throughout the book, David is like best friends with his son Jonathan. Though Jonathan, it's like they're like awesome friends together. Jonathan goes and like he's encouraging David, to seek the Lord for all the stuff that he needs. It's just interesting that just Jonathan is even related to Saul, because he's been like a good friend to him the whole time. And Jonathan, good friend and all, when that final battle comes and Saul kills himself before the Philistines can get him, Jonathan's
Mm-hmm.
killed in that battle. I mean, you can say, what's with the uneven justice? What's with the uneven justice? And I don't think that's how it works. Plus, if we're looking for another world, then really what happens in this world is inconsequential, I guess. But you can't understand all that stuff. I don't understand all of it, because Jonathan seemed like a pretty good guy, but he died right
Yeah.
alongside Saul. So I don't know.
Yeah.
It's really tough, but
Yeah.
you can kind of tell where Saul was going.
Yeah. It was just, it's so all right. So like chapter 28, okay, um, which it starts talking about where Saul consults with a medium. Um, but if you look at I'm gonna start in verse 4. Uh, I say the Philistines. I don't know how you say it. The
Hmm.
Philistines set up their camp at Shunem, and Saul gathered all the army of Israel and camped at Gilboa.
That's what I'm going
Uh,
with.
yeah, right. When Saul saw the vast Philistine army, he became frantic with fear. He asked the Lord what he should do, but the Lord refused to answer him, either by dreams or by sacred lots or by the prophets. Saul then said to his advisors, "Find a woman who is a medium so I can go and ask her what to do." So, in his radical thought process, um, oh, he's so frantic that, oh, the Lord's not answer, man, and I've got to have an answer. So he goes to the extreme of go find me a medium,
Which he
because
outlawed. He outlawed mediums.
which he outlawed. Uh,
That's
yeah,
not
he
godly.
right. He just like took a crazy left turn and he never come back from it, man. To the point that he was contradicting the stuff he had put in place.
It's pretty funny because there's a couple reasons. The first thing is funny is like you go back to David, and David's like he's talking to God about should I go after these guys? There's like this whole army. He has like his 400 dudes in the mountain. He's like,
Hmm.
should I attack this whole army? God's like, you're gonna win. David's like, all right, let's go. And he wins.
Yeah,
He trusts God and he wins. Saul doesn't trust God. He
yeah.
doesn't answer him right away. He's like, all right, I'm going to the medium, which he outlawed, which is funny too. That it's and the other thing is, it kind of works. He brings Samuel back, but Samuel's like not telling him what he wants to hear. Like the message is
Hmm.
like, yeah, you screwed up. You're still losing the kingdom. Why'd you wake me? Is the kind of message that I got.
Yeah, and I'll tell you. Let me read a little bit more here, and I'll tell you where my mind went when I read this. So it says in chapter 28, verse 8. So Saul disguised himself by wearing ordinary clothes instead of his royal robes. Then he went to the woman's home at night, accompanied by two of his men. Uh, so the whole disguise himself by wearing ordinary clothes instead of his royal robes. So like he he doesn't want people to recognize who he is. You know what I thought of? I thought of the way I used to be when I didn't. I thought people were pushy with Christianity for the longest time, and you would see um, someone that you knew was going to talk about the Lord, like let's say you seen them in a grocery store and you're like, oh man, I got to avoid them, so you hide your face. Yeah, exactly. For whatever reason that come to mind, it's like this is what this guy's doing. He's dodging them. He's trying to dodge these people in the grocery store. You know what I mean?
That is funny. The great King Saul, he's
That's
dressed in
right.
some random clothes. And
Yeah.
I just let it. He goes to all the troubles, like, oh, the medium, bring Samuel back. Samuel's like, what? What do you want me for?
Yeah. Yeah. Let me keep going here. Where's that at? That's
You can. I think it
uh
looks like 16 is where Samuel's like, what do you do it?
yeah. Let's see. Triple S. You fell the ground before him. Oh, here we. Okay. Um. What? Oh wait. Okay. So he's talking to the medium, and Saul asked the medium, "What does he look like?" Saul asked. "He is an old man wrapped in a robe." She replied. Saul realized it was Samuel, and he fell to the ground before him. Why have you disturbed me by calling me back? Samuel asked Saul. Because I am in deep trouble, Saul replied. The Philistines are at war with me, and God has left me and won't reply by prophets or dreams. So I have called for you to tell me what to do. But Samuel replied, Why ask me, since the Lord has left you and has become your enemy? The Lord has done just as he said he would do, uh, or just as he said he would. He has torn the kingdom from you and given it to your rival, David. The Lord has done this to you today because you refused to carry out his fierce anger against the Amalekites. What's more, the Lord will hand you and the army of Israel over to the Philistines tomorrow, and you and your sons will be here with me. The Lord will bring down the entire army of Israel in defeat. So, so not only does he come back and he's like, or talk to him and say, why are you asking me?
Saul,
You
forget
know,
I asked.
yeah. Oh, and by the way, you and your sons are going to die tomorrow.
Oh, yeah. So you know that. Just so you know, you're going to be
Just so
here
you
with
know.
me.
Yeah.
That's wild. You know what? There's something else wild about this. This also says that there are people out there who do stuff like this, and it works. Sort of. You know, you can do something in this kind of mystic art realm.
Mm-hmm.
Because this person did this, whether it was just the Lord working through her so that Saul saw that in that moment, or whether these people have some sort of, I don't know, demonic gift. I don't know. It's just kind of interesting that it did work. You know, you're not calling a lady from Long Island, you know, the one that's on TV, but it's that sort of thing.
Which actually, I don't know if you want to read it or I can read it. It don't matter. But if you want to read that witchy ways right there, it kind of
a little side thing.
Yeah, it kind of talks about that, you know, as far as mediums and stuff.
Oh, look at it. I see it says 1970s in the middle of the package. I can't wait to see what it is. Okay. Witchy ways. Some people want to know what God is up to. And let me stress again that this Bible, this Every Man's Bible, this NLT version here is awesome. This stuff is awesome. No, before when you were reading it, it's like, oh, that sounds pretty good. But now that I get to see all of them every time I read, it's like, oh, yeah, this is great. So, again, this is a good Bible to have, I think. Sometimes people want to know what God is up to, but they can't seem to wait for him to reveal it. That sounds like me as well. Instead of letting God work out his plans on his own timetable, they consult other sources. They're desperate to unravel the mysteries of life. And there are always people called mediums who are willing to help them, usually in exchange for a fee. Starting in the 1970s, television became a popular way for mediums to advertise and demonstrate their skills. That's in quotations. Today, TV ads for psychics are rampant, even during prime time. Using TV to spread psychic messages may be new, but the practice of the occult or hidden techniques is ancient. In his law, God forbade his followers to consult sorcerers or mediums. That's in Deuteronomy 18. Instead, they were to rely and wait on him. In obedience to God's command, King Saul had outlawed mediums in Israel. But curiosity and desperation eventually got the better of him. He felt his kingdom slipping from his grasp, and he wanted someone to calm his fears. So he sought out a medium and asked her to call on the spirit of the deceased Samuel. When she did, the message wasn't quite what Saul had in mind. Saul learned that his army would suffer humiliating defeat the next day, and he and his sons would die. Most mediums are fakes, using elaborate tricks to get people to believe they have special powers. But some really do communicate with the spiritual world. In any case, God's prohibition on consulting mediums remains in effect. We are called to believe and trust God and let it go after that, rather than messing around with astrology charts, tea leaves, Ouija boards, or words of witches. Yeah, that's about right there. That's a trip, because, you know, so in this world where we think that can't happen, he's saying that can happen. I mean, it's happened here. So it happens, but you're not to seek that out, because that's not trusting God to go to a witch. It sounds ridiculous that it's like it's a witch. You know, you think of like the Wicked Witch of the West or something, but it's a real thing. Yeah. It's a real thing.
Yeah, and it for me, it's like he's desperately he's going through any resource he can, wigging out, trying to get the answer that he wants.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I think it kind of dances with what we've talked about before. um, the whole unanswered prayers. Um, I don't believe in that. The whole oh, God doesn't answer my prayers. No, maybe he's just saying no, and you're not willing to accept that. You know.
Yeah. No, I believe that, God hears your prayer, but what you ask for may not be what is needed.
Mm-hmm.
So having a prayer, I don't know if you call it ignored, but he listens to them, but not followed through the way you want him to doesn't necessarily mean that it's been ignored. Like, 'cause I
Right.
think that obviously God knows what happens. He
Yeah.
anointed Saul. He knew what Saul was going to be eventually, but I think he knew that it led to David, and then it led to the line of David that led to Jesus. That's what I think, but I'm just
Yeah.
guessing.
Yeah. I
Um,
just don't like the terminology of unanswered prayer because it's giving the assumption of a limited God. You get what I'm
yeah, that's
saying?
right. That's right. Like he couldn't get to it or something,
Yeah,
in
like
his
he was too
capacity.
busy. He wasn't able to get to that one. It's like no, that's not the case at all. Um,
No,
but yeah.
I think
Anyhow,
that
that
it could be decades too. If,
yeah.
especially even if it is answered, so to speak. Who
Well, our
says that you
time's
don't?
not God's time.
Right. I mean, just because you want it in a week, maybe God gives it to you the day before you die, and it's
Right.
what needed to happen to set His plan into motion. I don't know. That's why I say nowadays I'm just like when I pray, I literally I say thanks for loving me, God, even though you didn't have to love me. Thanks for sending your
Hmm.
Son. Let your will be done. Okay, because
Yeah.
what am I gonna say? Hey, I want a Buick. Let your will be done, and hopefully,
Yeah.
it's all right for me too. I do say other stuff besides that, but I mean that's sometimes it feels like that's the best thing to say because
Yeah.
really that's what's gonna happen. And that's what should
Hmm.
happen. So why are you going to say something else? I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. And there was another thing here that's also in chapter 28 that made me think like Paul was almost, or Paul, Saul was, I know, they're
It is
too
confusing.
close. Yeah, they're too close. Saul was almost like um, acting like an addict. Okay. I'll say, I'll tell you why I say that. Um, let's see where, right here. Okay, so let's start in verse 20 of chapter 28. Saul fell full length on the ground, paralyzed with fright because of Samuel's words. He was also faint with hunger, for he had eaten nothing all day and all night. When the woman saw how distraught he was, she said, Sir, I obeyed your command at the risk of my life. Now do what I say, and let me give you a little something to eat so that you can regain your strength for the trip back. But Saul refused to eat anything. Um, you know, like I've seen this firsthand. Um, someone that's like that's addicted to meth. Um,
Mm-hmm.
when they are on those drugs, especially when they're high, they won't eat for days at a time. Um, because they're so that's just crazy to me that you could be so addicted and so focused on something to the point that you don't even care anything about eating, and you could go days at a time without eating. That's crazy. That means your mind is like it's gone down the rabbit hole for sure.
Yeah. I think that tells you his state of mind. He's like, I don't know, when people say you're half the man you used to be, and I mean, that seems like that's him.
Yeah.
He's not anything like what he started out as. He's just been eaten up with whatever you want to say, sin, jealousy,
Hmm.
whatever. It's just left him like just a shell of a person,
Yeah.
which is sad, because, David, he's kind of like, he has his rise and fall too. He has things that he does that are
Hmm.
sinful. I mean, in this book, he has a couple wives already, and I think it's said that he has multiple children, multiple wives. He does some things that are questionable as well, and definitely then Solomon after him, same way. So I mean, they all seem to have their. I guess they're all human. We're all full of flaws and stuff. It's just, I don't know. Saul's are Saul's are bad. Saul had kind of
Yeah.
a bright, burning fall.
Yeah.
And then here's David on the next page, where he's going and fighting the what we're going to call the Amalekites because it's a lot easier for me to try to say.
Right.
And so we're looking at, let's see, verse 7. he's talking to the priest. He says, "Bring me the ephod, or the little priest jacket or whatever for people listening." So the priest bought it, and then David asked the Lord, "Should I chase after this band of raiders? Will I catch them?" And the Lord said, "Yeah, go after them. You will surely recover everything that's taken from you." So what does he do? He takes off after them. I mean, he's got what does it say, 600 guys, and 200 of them stop at like a river or something because they're tired, and his 400 goes on, and his 400 win. And when David takes his 400, they win big usually.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's just, I don't know. It tells you it's all about faith still, even the Old Testament. Faith in God, faith in what God's telling you. Faith to wait for God, I guess, is a good lesson from this too, huh? Don't expect it right away.
Yeah, sorry, I was reading further ahead in chapter 30.
Well, what were you reading? What you got going on?
Well, it was just talking about when David comes back. After that, then David returned to the brook, and met with the 200 men that he had left behind because they were too exhausted to go with him. They went out to meet David and his men, and David greeted them joyfully.
What's funny is I did highlight that section right there because they're all telling them those men can't have the stuff they got from the plunder they regained. And David's like, no, that's not. These men went with us too. They just couldn't make the journey. We're sharing all of the stuff. So, because they say he's the greatest king of Israel, right? So I mean, some spots you can really see it. I know he makes mistakes and stuff, but you can really see where he goes to God. Like every time he makes a mistake, he seems like he repents for his mistakes. He's sorry to God for what he's done. And Saul was always like it was someone else's fault. Like it wasn't him who did it. It was like his men's fault or something like that. But David
was constantly pointing the finger.
Yeah, all the time. And I don't know. I think we got a little bit of David in us, a little bit of Saul in us. I think that's that. We got like a mixture of that.
Yeah, and David went to the Lord with everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And
where,
Saul was like, whoever's listening, he'll go to.
Yeah. Saul wanted to figure everything out for himself.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't have the patience to wait to hear from the Lord on what he needed to do. So he wanted instant answers.
Yeah. What does that sound like? Let
Let
me get my iPhone out and Google.
Yeah, it sounds like us.
If Google don't know, then I'm giving up.
Yep.
That's what he was like. He's a lot like us, actually. Got to have stuff right away. He didn't even have all these comforts that we have that allow you to know so much stuff so quickly.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking about David had those 2 times that he could have killed Saul, but he didn't. And this is a testament to David and the fact that he trusted the Lord. He wouldn't touch Saul because the Lord anointed Saul. It's not because he loved Saul. It's because he respected what the Lord had done, and he wouldn't touch him. Mm-hmm. He could have killed him. I mean, Saul could have come back and killed him the next day. I mean, he would guarantee that wouldn't happen if he would have just done it, but he wouldn't do it. It says something about him.
Yeah, for sure.
Man, I like this book. Was really I don't know what it is about Samuel, but I had a great time reading this book.
Yeah.
It was I don't know. I won't say it's fun, but yeah, it was fun. I enjoyed it. I had a good time. It's his Bible.
And then and then in chapter 31 at the end of 1 Samuel, Saul ends up. I mean, he was like it says, he was already severely wounded, but he ended up committing suicide. He ended up killing himself.
Mm-hmm.
To keep the others from doing it. Well, what's he say here? Fighting grew fierce around Saul, and the Philistine archers caught up with him and wounded him severely. Saul groaned to his armor bearer, "Take your sword and kill me before these pagan Philistines come to run me through and taunt and torture me." But his armor bearer was afraid and would not do it. So Saul took his own sword and fell on it. Took his own sword and fell on it. When his armor bearer realized that Saul was dead, he fell on his own sword and died beside the king. So he done the same thing right beside him.
I'm not gonna be the last one they find.
So I like the little study part down here at the bottom of this page to kind of wrap up chapter 31 pretty much. It says suicide was the tragic end of this man who never learned to repent. Saul's life didn't have to end that way. If he had admitted his sins, accepted responsibility for his decisions to disobey God, asked God to change him, he could have come to a noble end. One key to his downfall is that he was he was never fully accountable to others. He relied on himself and never learned to fully depend upon God. As a result, his life stands as a monument to squandered potential. Saul's tragic end should give us ample reason to embrace God's plan for spiritual renewal. So,
When you say that, when I was done reading this book, what I did is I went ahead and watched the last 20 minutes of the Courageous movie,
mhm.
where the cops are, where they pull over the like gangbanger guys, and
Yeah,
the cops pull them over, and they have the little shootout, and then they end up wrestling and finally subduing the guys after a few minutes. And he makes that speech at the end about the role of fathers, which I think we talked about that before. It got me thinking about this, and those guys are all saying, I'm going to lead my house. I will. You don't have to ask who's leading my house and teaching my kids about God, because I will. And I was thinking, this is kind of a good lesson on we should probably stand up for God out there in the world too. And this is not exactly what this means, but it got me thinking
yeah,
about that. How when we go out there, uh, sometimes I'll shy away because of the situation that I'm in. It's not really a situation where I would normally share something like that, or at
hmm,
least kind of project it a little bit. But it made me think that we need to do this, because
hmm,
as you see what God does for the people that have faith in Him, and what that relationship can be like, and I don't want to shy away from it. I mean, I want to work on that.
yeah, yeah. I think it's well, this is kind of a little bit of a different topic, but I want to throw this out there. You talk about um, saying that you're going to give God credit and you're going to go to the Lord and everything. Um, so I don't remember if I talked about it on here last time or what. You remember me talking about my niece's dad, my sister's ex boyfriend or whatever, um, the one that had the tumor on the brain and all that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I don't know if I've told you anything since then, but um, so they took the 4 centimeter mass off his brain, and from surgery, and woke him up from surgery. Um, he's got all function, he's got his memory. Actually, I think he went home like 2 days later. So um, it was one of those situations where we were talking back and forth. And I said, "Man, you better be praising the Lord um, for even waking up from surgery. He could have been a vegetable on a vent. You start talking
Mm-hmm.
about brain surgery, that's serious stuff. So obviously they took the mass out and they sent it off to be tested and this and that. Well, they got the results back, and it's he's got stage 4 brain cancer, and they
He
do not.
has or
He
had.
he has
Oh,
still, meaning it's um, I guess from what I understand, stage 4 means is kind of terminology of it's already moved to other parts,
yeah, I think
and
that is
there's no cure.
metastasize.
There's no cure for it. So
Oh my gosh.
um, they took a mass out, but it's already spread other places, and he had his follow up visit Thursday, I believe it was Thursday morning, and they told him with if he did not do chemo and radiation, he had about 6 months.
Hmm.
If he does chemo and radiation, he has to do it every day, or not every day, 5 days a week for the first 6 weeks, and then once a week for basically indefinitely after that. And even with doing chemo and radiation, he would be very lucky to have a year, maybe two, and extremely lucky to see 5 years. But don't be optimistic about that.
Wow. What a turnaround.
So, yeah, from man, this is amazing to wow, and how do you, um, it's hard to find the words, to have a conversation with him, because we were texting back and forth last night or the night before. I can't remember. I think it was Thursday night. Um, what do you say? Like,
I imagine that'd be tough because you're telling him. I don't know what his state of mind is as far as godliness, but
mhm,
you're telling him like, praise God, talk to God, give it to God, whatever you need to do, even now
yeah,
when you got the bad news, and someone who I don't know maybe doesn't share our state of mind.
yeah,
First thing I would think would be like, well, God did this to me. Why did God do this to me anyway? So why
exactly.
should I
So,
praise the guy who put this thing in my head?
but I will tell you that I was still firm in telling him, um, you better be making sure that you're right with the Lord.
Yeah, it's
You better
critical.
be talking to him, and it's really hard to tell somebody. I don't think Matt's a, he's I don't think he's a believer. Just from what I've seen, I don't know what's on the man's heart, but I don't think he is. So he's one of those types that, you say, hey, I'll be praying for you, and he's, hey, I appreciate that, but he ain't praying, and he ain't going to church or nothing like that. So
Right.
um, I just I really hope that he comes to know the Lord and doesn't blame God for this situation, and trust that there's a reason for it.
I hope so too. I have to pray for
But
Matt.
that's it's tough though. I mean, because Lexi, my niece, is 5, 6 years old.
Yeah,
So
his daughter. Yeah,
yeah, his daughter. So
that is
um,
tough, and it's gonna be the same story with her. I mean, you could see like someone who goes like he passes on whenever,
yeah,
and she's 5 or 6, so she has some recollection. She grows up and say, "Why would I believe in the God that took my father when I was so young?" Sort of thing. So it's just a perpetual handful. You can. I think that you could probably play a big part in reversing some of that, even with him.
yeah,
I don't know how you go about doing it. I really don't. Maybe
yeah. It's
just by
tough.
being godly around him. I don't know, but that's tough.
Yeah, yeah. It's I'm trying to give him some time. Like, I don't want to beat him over the head with it right off the bat. You know what I mean? Like, because I just feel like it'd push him away, and
Yeah.
it might even build up anger. For me to say stuff like that to him. Um,
Yeah, because he'll
but
be like, "You're not going through this. It's easy to say for you," that sort of
yeah,
thing.
yeah.
But that's
But
kind of
I
thing I
mean,
think that scares Christians off though, because they're like, he has a point. I'm not going through this, but it doesn't change anything from what
yeah.
you're saying.
I just told him I would continue to pray for him. That we was all praying for him, and I hope that he would, you know, take the time to talk with the Lord and get himself right. So
Oh, that's a tough one right there.
yeah,
But so
but yeah. Anyhow, that was a weird term, but the point of that was is that I just it's it's easy. It's very like when he come out of surgery and everything was hunky dory. It's easy to say, man, praise God, give praise God, give him the glory for it. He worked a miracle in your life and all that stuff. And then a couple weeks later, bombshell, can you still be faithful enough to say, well, I trust that the Lord is in control and he's doing it for a reason. And you need to do the same thing, Matt. Even though the doctors are telling you that you're probably going to die within 2 years,
yeah,
you still need to trust in the Lord.
it's tough because I think uh, this happened with my sister as well. I haven't told you about this, but
Yeah.
she's in there. She's on a vent, coronavirus with pneumonia. Uh,
Hmm.
she's on the vent, and the critical number, one of the critical numbers, is the O2,
Yeah.
how well that you take in oxygen basically into the bloodstream. So
Yeah.
that's one of the issues with this whole thing because it affects the lungs. And her O2 was like 94, which is good. I mean, that's almost where most people's are all the time. It had fluctuated. The other days before it had been down 60, 70, which is horrible. It's way too low. Um, so at 94, we're all like, praise God, prayers answered. praise God, prayers answered. The next morning she passes away.
Right.
So whenever you're talking to somebody else, our bunch came out as a godly bunch, even when I
Yeah.
didn't, I didn't know for sure with some of the people. But when it came time, you could see that it was true. But with somebody else, you say, praise God for he answered prayers, and then the next day something awful happens.
Yeah.
They're going to challenge the credibility of that,
Yep.
in their mind. They're going
Yep.
to say, well, you said praise God yesterday. Did God change his mind today, or were you wrong yesterday? So, I mean, it's tough to keep going
And
with
it's
that
hard
stuff.
to explain something like, because I still praise God even when it is bad news. It's hard to explain to somebody that isn't a Christian and hasn't read the Bible and doesn't have a relationship with him and doesn't understand what you mean. It's like you said, it's hard for them to be um, optimistic, I guess is the best way to put it.
Mm-hmm.
When you say stuff like that, then the next day it's catastrophic news, or and you go, how can you? Yeah, so much for praising God. Look what happened, and it's like, no, I still praise Him, because He understands what He's doing. We don't. So
Yeah.
I think it's the old saying, you got to praise Him in the valley just as much as you do when you're on the mountaintop. I think that falls right in line with that. Is
Mm-hmm.
it's not going to be all rainbows and sunshine, and you got to be willing to praise Him whether it's the news you wanted or not.
Yeah. I know that, I think it was Craig mentioned Job earlier. Kind of goes along with that. Challenging Job with a whole lot of awful stuff when he was like a good guy. He was a good
Exactly.
guy, and they
Yep.
challenged him with that. And I wanted to read something specifically for your situation that I recall from Acts. I know we're in the Old Testament, but we
Yeah.
jump over just for a second. And this is Acts chapter 16, and it's talking about this lady named Lydia. And I remember this from when I read it because this is real important, I think, for your situation. I'll tell you why. It says, and this is Paul's, one of his many journeys. It says, one of them was Lydia from, I'm not going to say where she was from because it's a word with a bunch of consonants in a row, a merchant of expensive purple cloth who worshiped God. As she listened to us, the Lord opened her heart. Now, I think that's the most critical thing. I'm underlining it. Lord opened her heart. That means that perhaps that prayer will open his heart. Like the Lord, if the Lord can assist that in happening and tune you into that, because it says no one comes to Jesus except the ones the Father wants to come to Jesus. So that prayer might be the trick. I mean, he may never even speak to you about it, but the prayer might be the key, because that's all it took for her. That stuck with me because that says, all right, we can pray, and maybe that'll do the trick. God will just step in and say, we heard the prayer. Let's help this person maybe.
Yeah. But I don't want it to be. I do believe that people can go through a life-changing event like this and sincerely come to the Lord. But I don't want it to be one of the situations where they just do it because they think it's convenient. Well, I'm dying now, so I guess I better see about this whole God thing and you know accept Him because now I'm dying. So it's probably the right thing to do. I hope it's not that situation. I hope it's a sincere giving his heart to the Lord.
Yeah. I don't know. I think maybe when people, I've never been in a situation where I thought I was going to die more than maybe
Right.
a split second in some sort of accident or something like that, just for a second.
Yeah.
Then you're like, okay, it's fine. But if I'm trying to imagine that, that might put you in a very clear state of mind where you were maybe not receptive because you always feel like you have time to do that. Let's
Until
be
you
as bad as
realize
we
that you
want.
don't have time.
Till you realize you don't have time. It's like, all right, I'm gonna take a
Yeah.
serious look at that, and maybe that is a serious look you get. And if it's really serious and you come to the Lord, then okay,
Yeah.
maybe that's how it had to happen. I don't know.
Yeah. You're right there. I guess the best way for me to describe it is like I don't want it to be, well, I'm dying now, so let me check that box just in case it is real.
Yeah, just like
I-
going through the motions. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, sure, Jesus, you can have my heart. I mean, we all know
Yeah.
that's not legitimate. That doesn't work like that. It doesn't
So
seem to work like that. You have to have a trueness to it.
I just couldn't imagine. It makes you really open your eyes to to your own life and makes you wonder, like, what in the world would I do if that happened to me? Like if I got catastrophic news tomorrow, like, and I have all these questions for him that I don't. I think it's too soon to ask, but you think about stuff like, okay, you've just been given news that you could die in a year's time. Do you continue working, or do you quit and spend as much time as you can with your family because you only got a year?
Mm.
But how do you spend time with your family and do stuff with them if you don't have funds to do those things? Like,
Yeah.
where is the happy medium there?
I think I'll say what you said to me in this situation as far as this sort of thought process is you just have to ask God and trust that there's going to be an answer. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know what else you do. I really don't know. Yeah, Craig's talking about the thief on the cross. Right there at the last minute, he meets Christ. It says, you'll be with me in the kingdom of heaven, And he was a Christian. That's what we were talking about. I don't know
Yeah.
who I was talking to, but maybe it was you. Talk about works saving people and how that guy on the cross didn't have time for works. He was saved, so works don't save anybody. Plus, it says they don't save anybody. I mean, I don't know. It's just adding on to that, and it's just, that should comfort a lot of people. I mean, it's 1 second before death, you give your heart to Jesus, you're there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because there's a lot of people we know that we're concerned about, like your family member there.
Yeah.
So you can have faith at even that last moment.
I like it. Kind of off topic, but I like what George says there. He says, usually has to slap me upside the head to get my attention.
I know, not good.
I'm right there with you, George.
Are we all like that, though? I mean, really? Yeah. I mean, we talk a big game, then we face a trial, we start running like Saul to the medium. I mean, that's how it happens,
Yeah.
Oh, we're all tough here on Bible study, but we face stuff in real life, and we think twice, right? So.
Yeah. That was George. I don't know if you ever heard me tell that story about me rededicating my life to the Lord and coming back to the Lord and trying to be a better father and Christian husband, the whole 9 yards, driving down the road, thinking about how I need to be a better dad and be a better leader in my house. And 20 seconds later, I pass a church sign that says, "Fathers, are you leading your children to Christ?" Yeah, that's the Lord reaching out and slapping me in the face, saying, "You got it now, stupid." Was that clear enough for you?
Yeah. Do you? Well, I guess the answer is yes. You think things are placed like that for you to see?
Yeah, I do. I mean, obviously, I do.
Yeah.
I think maybe it doesn't have to be that bold with all people. For us hard-headed folk, yeah, probably so.
I think so too. I think there's some we notice and some we don't notice. Some we don't have to notice, like there's a road work and you don't travel down a certain road that you're not supposed to go. Something as simple as that. Your car doesn't start, you get angry. But if your car would have started, you would have driven out the interstate and got hit by a bus. I think there's stuff like that you never figure out, and there's stuff that you see. Like at my sister's funeral today, they were talking because a dove landed right there next to us while we were talking, and that seems silly, but it gave my mother a lot of comfort,
Yeah.
So it did its job,
Yeah.
But here I am. I had Jackson and Andrew with me. By the way, I brought them this morning because Melissa had to go work somewhere. I was sitting there, so we had Jackson didn't say a word the entire time. And Andrew was just, he wasn't going to say a word. Here we are telling stories. They're asking, tell a story about Christy. I tell a story where she busted my front tooth out with a gas can. That's what I think of, and it makes me happy to think of that story.
You are definitely from Chicken Spoke, North Carolina.
Well, I said she tried it. She threw a gas can at me, busted it's fake. The bottom half of my tooth is fake because of her when I was a kid, and then she tried to convince me not to tell anybody. Like they wouldn't see my half a tooth missing or something. It's just funny.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it gave us comfort. I mean, I think things like that can be placed there. I mean, he's God. He can do whatever he wants.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm a choose to believe that it's yes.
Yes.
Because it's comforting to think that way.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I'm going to do.
Well, I think obviously God knows your heart because he created you. So I think he knows how he needs to talk to you to get your attention. So
I think so too. Might take a while.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's the plan. Maybe it has to be at a certain time. I think so. I think sometimes like your family member, you don't have to necessarily. God knows that He's going to come to Christ in that final hour,
Mm-hmm.
and that's where it's always going to be, and it wasn't going to change any. So
Yeah. Right.
and
Yeah.
and you're not going to change the ultimate. If God wants him there, He'll bring him there. You're not going to change that. You can just be supportive, I guess.
Yeah. It's just tough. You just think about, you think about stuff like my niece growing up without a dad, and you start trying to make plans for not to replace him, but to just make sure that she has some type of male figure in her life going forward and stuff like that.
What if thinking about that, God says, "All right, we know this guy's going to pass on." I know I hate talking like that because I know he's still here, but I'm just for the purpose of this conversation. We know he's going to pass on. Let's make sure we bring Justin close, so at that time he can assume some of that role for this little girl. So I mean, we don't know what that is, but I mean, maybe that's it though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know. I find that stuff comforting. It's like then it gives you a purpose as well in the whole thing.
Yeah. Oh, George said I heard that on a previous podcast. That remark made me stop and think in a hot attic. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh. That's wow. We lost Saul there at the end. A necessary turn.
Necessary turn.
Yeah.
I think we got the point.
Yeah. I think we're, like I said, a little bit of Saul, a little bit of David. Try to be more David than Saul, but even David wasn't all David,
Yeah. So,
yeah. Well, I guess we'll find that out in 2 Samuel.
That's right.
And I guess we'll find. Well, I guess there's a bunch of books that mention David actually. So we'll find it out in 2 Samuel plus some.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Well, it's a good talk.
It's all yours.
Wrap it up.
I'll get the button, and you say whatever it is you want to say. I'll say I appreciate it, everybody. I had a good time. I enjoyed reading this book. I'm going to continue on with 2 Samuel, but not necessarily where we're going to talk next week. But I look forward to reading 2 Samuel. So
yeah. I was telling Zach. I think we was talking about it before the show or whatever, that I need to reread the Old Testament, because I'm one of those guys. I tend to always be in the New Testament, and I've only read through the Old Testament one time, and it's time for me to recap and go through the Old Testament again.
Probably appreciate it more this time around.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're actually at in our small group at church. We're actually going through James right now, but
nice. Craig's like, yes,
right. So, but yeah, I need to transition back to the Old Testament, read through it too. It's just this is what's tough for me is when you're in depth studying something at church in like a small group or something, outside of Sunday morning service, and you're actually studying that. It's hard for me to flip flop. You know what I mean? Like if I've got the study in James to prepare for Sunday night when we do our Bible study at church or our small group, then it's hard for me to say, well, let me go read 2 Samuel too. It totally throw me off. So
understandable. Yeah.
I'm a one-track minded guy. I got to do one thing at a time.
Well, we could mirror your group and do something similar to that. That's no big deal.
Oh no, I'm not. No, I'm not saying we got to do that. No, I can prepare for the show. That's not a big deal.
All right, guys. 2 Samuel next week. You heard Justin.
Okay, fair enough.
How many chapters is that? I don't think I'll be done with 2 Samuel by next week, despite what it says, how long it takes.
Yeah, that is the only thing about every man's Bible. Every man cannot read it in that time frame. How about that?
I can't even read the page that is talking about the beginning and the time allotted.
Yeah. Okay. So how many chapters is 2 Samuel? Let's see.
There's probably like 30.
Okay. Let's see.
It's not that much.
24. right?
Mm-hmm.
24. It says the estimated reading time for the entire book of Second Samuel is 50 minutes. You're going
Not
to
for this
read
guy.
24 chapters in less than an hour? Nah.
No,
Nah.
no, not at
Not
all.
this old boy, anyway.
No, I no way. I read like, if I'm lucky, I'll read like a chapter or two a few days a week.
Yeah.
And that puts me on like at the next show it'd be like at chapter 8 to 10 or something like that.
Oh, I want to share. I want to share the humor in
Which
that we
where are
talked
you
about.
where are you reading first of all?
The overview of First Samuel 365, page
Okay, I
365.
got one for you after that because I was thumbing through Second Samuel. Go ahead. Yeah.
I just me and Zach were talking about this earlier, and I thought everybody would get a kick out of this. So that these Bibles that we have, it kind of there's the first page of each book in the Bible. It's kind of got like an overview of who wrote it, what's going on here, what was the time frame, what's the message, key concepts, all this stuff. Um, and it says who wrote it, and it says we don't know for sure, but it was probably a court official or someone who had access to official historical records. And it says, could the author have been Samuel? Probably not. For one thing, he dies in chapter 25. Like,
I didn't
they
like
throw a
that.
little humor in there. I like that. It's like, yeah, probably wasn't him, considering he dies before the end of the chapter.
He dies in First Samuel. Yeah.
Yeah, he dies in First Samuel. He wasn't even around for the rest of it. So I
Well,
just thought that was funny.
here's my comedy for you. Just in passing in Second Samuel, near the end of it, actually in chapter 24, it has a spotlight thing at the bottom. It says, "David, how could you?" It says David's blunders. It says peeping Tom, one night stand, elaborate cover up, hit job on woman's innocent husband, failure to detect his firstborn son's problem with lust. There's like a whole bunch of it. It's really, really good. Too much pride in his military force. I can't wait to read that. But
Yeah.
it's funny. I know about some of his infidelities, without reading it. I've never read, like you said, you read through this. I've never read these books that I'm reading now, so it's really exciting for me. But some of the story I know, like Bathsheba and stuff like that, and David's like, oh yeah.
Well, for me, it's like I remember highlights, and that's about it because I was a teenager when I read through it. So
It'll be so much better this time. Yeah.
I haven't retained a whole lot from 20 years ago. So
Yeah.
yeah, definitely need to read through it again. Yeah, Craig says he loves James. I like James too. I think it's probably one of my favorites. So
Yeah, James is awesome. It's like the way he writes. It's just the way he gets his point across. I just love the way he writes and what he writes about. Yeah, we like James. We're James advocates.
anyhow,
I'm sorry.
all
Go
right,
ahead.
let's wrap this up. Anyhow, we appreciate you guys. You guys listening to the podcast. We really appreciate it. It seems like it's growing. We get a little more every week. So you guys are talking about it and sharing it. So continue to tell people about it. If you think somebody will enjoy it, the more the merrier. We appreciate the support. Y'all have a good work week, and we'll see you next time.
Fail on my part.
Failure.
Hey, what? See you next time.